I had a bass guitar people the other day who said, well, can I do anything else but using the root notes? Yeah, it seems a bit boring to do. Etc. without sort of doing anything else with your chords. Well, the thing is, simplicity is a good thing in itself. If you can do something like this, and then it ties up with your drum rhythm, actually that's it's good playing, it's good awareness of the song, etc. But it would be nice to have a few extra tricks up your sleeve. Now, the song that he brought along to his lesson was American Pie. So I thought, okay, I'll just go through the chorus of that, saying what other things you can do. Now, the key is G major. Now, the G major scale on the bass goes G, 3rd fret, 5th fret for A, next string 2nd fret for B, 3rd fret for C, 5th fret for D, next string 2nd fret for E, then 4th fret for the only sharp in this key, which is F sharp, and then G again at 5th fret. So the idea basically is that most songs, including this one, with the exception of one chord at the end, which I'm going to cover as well, chords are usually diatonic. And what I mean by that is that the chords are more likely to form off that given G major scale. Bye bye Miss American Pie, drove my ship. That uses the root note there, 4th and the 5th. Now, that scale, you just noticed I played notes in between those chords, and that's the idea of having that major scale in your head, or just that pattern on the bass, where you can decide how you're going to get from one place to the other, but with a few steps, and it can really refine a sound. Bye bye Miss American Pie. But if I did this, bye bye this American Pie, it's hard to sing and play something that's just over. It sounds like a walking bass line. It sounds like a fast sort of upbeat jazz tune. We don't want it to sound like that. We want it to sound like the original. Bye bye American Pie, well much ever to the level that heaven was dry. Now, I've used only some of those notes. I haven't used all of them, but there's just that extra level of sort of exploration that you can have. In the verse, it would be nice to keep it simple, but in the chorus, you can lift things up a bit. And it's also a good way of differentiating between a verse and the chorus. The chorus could do with a bit of a lift, and it could include some extra notes in your bass. Now, I've got my iPad here. I've just programmed up the chorus in GarageBand. It's not the best backing track in existence, but you can at least see how this would work over it. So if I just press play, the tempo is a bit slower at the moment. I'm just going to speed it up slightly and just play the chorus once through with just the root notes. Bye bye Miss American Pie, drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. We got old boys drinking whiskey and rye. This will be the day that I die. Oh, this will be the day that I die. So, I've not had to move from this particular position because all of the chords there fit on my scale. There is one chord here at the end, that this will be the day that I die, which actually has slightly different notes in the chord, but all of the notes that you're hearing there that I played in the chorus all fit within that framework, and that's a good thing in itself because you're not having to search for notes. You just decide how many notes it's gone up or down. It's good for your ear training as well. So now I'm going to slow that down slightly. Let's just bring it down to 110 like it was originally. This time, instead of playing that, just the G, C, G, all I've done is added one extra note at the end of that C chord. G, C, G. Now I've used an extra note there, which is the 5th of G, or the dominant, which traditionally leads back to your root note. So I've just used that. I've done nothing else but that, but it's instantly gives it a bit more of a bit more of a lift. So I don't have to go mad with it. I mean, bye bye Miss American Pie. You could do something like that. If I just do I'm just going to do the first 5 bars. So this is just with the bass notes. There it is, G, C, G, D. Taking care to go with the rhythm of the chords that are there, because you get these sort of pushes where the chords are what's known as anticipated. They come in slightly before the bar line. So G, C, G, D. I could do some rhythmic complexity, which would also avoid me having to play lots and lots of different notes to get a sort of a higher result. For a strong chorus like that, bye bye Miss American Pie, it may be even indeed better to play more sort of rhythmically driven stuff than too many notes, but you can combine the two things. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to play those chords again, but just do something a little bit different. So I just put in a little rising scale on one of those little sections only, not the whole thing. Bye bye Miss American Pie. And it does go with the vocals. It goes with that vocal rhythm. Don't forget, as a bass player, as a drummer, as a guitarist, you're playing for the song. It's all about that top line, about the vocals. So you don't want to get in the way of stuff. Now what I did there was I went G, C, then I went back to G, to a B, a C, and then landed on the D. Now I missed out the A there in the scale because there wasn't really enough time to use them all. I could do that. I could actually start the scale a bit earlier in order that I can incorporate that second note. But do I really want that? Not always. If I just played that riff. The trouble is that when I started that run, that's a strong beat of the bar, and I'm playing an A instead of a G. And because it's on the first beat of the bar, that's going to grate. Whereas if I start on the G, it means that I've got the strong beats of the bar with those root notes. So you've got to be very careful about the runs that you do there. And if you've done a run like that, there's no need to run back down, because actually it's get more complicated. If I do that and try and sing the chorus. Bye bye Miss American Pie, drove a Chevy to the levee and the levee was dry. It's just too much. And it's also a nice phrase length. Beginning. And it's more of a hook now, because it's something that's just a little bit extra, but it's not so rich in notes and runs and scales and all that you just lose the identity of the song there. Now, actually on the song itself, you know, the bass player's job is very, very simple, because the tempo is also fast. We're working at 110 here, whereas the tune is at kind of 1-2-8 or thereabouts. It's much, much faster. So the room that you have for putting in those lines is less, definitely. Now, at the same time, instead of starting on the bottom G, I could start on the top G. I could come the opposite way down the scale. Instead of I could go like this. Would it go with the vocal line? Bye, bye, Miss American Pie. No. American Pie. It's going in the same direction as the vocal line. American Pie. It's okay. American Pie. Well, in fact, it's more than okay. It does work, but for some reason, when I played it there, it didn't work. Bye, bye, Miss American Pie. It's a little bit too harmonically, it's a little bit too cliched with that vocal line. Bye, bye, Miss American Pie. That just has a bit more substance, because music has to do, in terms of bass and chords and top line, it's better if it does this than that. So the bass line is going up while the top line might be coming down, and you've got the chords in the middle, which is a glue. I always liken music, well, pop music, where you have bass, the chords and the top line as being a sandwich. The interesting bit is the chords in the middle. You know, that's your filling of your sandwich, that's your pickle with your extra sun-dried tomatoes and all that. Bass line's a bit of bread, top line's a bit of bread. They've got to be stuck together with those chords, and the chords make it interesting. You know, two bits of bread with nothing in, it's not really a sandwich. However, you've got to think of it in those terms. The thing has to be an entity rather than coming apart at the seams. So just moving on to the "This'll be the day that I die." Now, in the chord of G, in the key of G major, the second chord is a minor chord, which is an A minor, but here we've got an A major. Now that brings in another note to your G major scale in the form of this, the C sharp. So when you do something like "This'll be the day that I die," that's not going to work, whereas will work much better if I just go play the chorus and then I'll nod when that moment arrives. Now there, really, because those chords hold, it's not quite a good enough example actually, because "This'll be the day that I die," it should be held notes. But if, just supposing you were going through this and you wanted to play extra notes, you would actually have to think about the chord, the individual chord of A major there, as opposed to the overall key, the home key of G major. So as I said before, all those chords are built on this scale, but one of those chords, the A major chord, has a different note in it. Now, G has a G, a B and a D in it. That's your chord. A minor has A, C and E. B minor has a B, a D and an F sharp. C major, C, E and G. D major, D, F sharp and A. And lastly, E minor, E, G and B. Every single note I've just mentioned is in the key of G major, but that A major chord has got the C sharp in it. So you've got to be mindful of chords that change in a song. A chord that doesn't go with your classic diatonic 1, 4 and 5 being major, 2, 3 and 6 being minor, because actually chord 2 is major here. And that's the rub. So you've just got to be wary of those things, and that's one reason why I decided I'd do a demo on this particular song. So I hope that's helped. Really, the balance to strike here is one between rhythmic drive and simplicity, and something where you can explore a little bit, but still, remaining, in the groove. The best bass lines and the best bass players are those that kind of don't actually get noticed at all, because the job is being done with that balance in mind, the balance between rhythmic drive and groove and extra notes. So there we are.